My name is Elise. I'm 42. And I'm about to say something that makes me feel like a villain in my own story. I don't know when exactly I started feeling afraid of being touched by my husband. Not afraid like I feared for my safety, nothing like that. Afraid like I'd flinch at the thought of intimacy, of going through the motions. Of pretending again that I was still in love the way I used to be. It's strange how something can be dying inside you and no one around you notices. Not even the person lying next to you every night. For most of my marriage, I thought we had something solid. Safe. Stable. David and I met when I was 28, he was 10 years older, charming, settled, and already a father. That used to comfort me. It made him seem grounded in a way the men I'd known weren't. He wasn't chasing things, he'd already caught them. He used to cup my face with both hands when he kissed me, like he couldn't believe I was real. Sometimes he'd wake me up just to tell me he loved me. That used to feel like a fairy tale. Now, when he kisses me, it's like he's trying to press a button. Like he's following instructions, kiss wife equals proof of love. His lips linger too long or not long enough, and I feel myself stiffen, then feel guilty for stiffening. Our cuddles have turned into something sad. He'll wrap his arms around me on the couch and I'll be trying to breathe through the weight of all the things I can't say. It's not that I don't want him close, it's that when he is close, I remember how far we've drifted. And I wonder if he can feel it too. The first time I knew I was beginning to disappear inside this marriage was about 2 years ago. We were at a friend's wedding. I wore this dark green dress that still makes me feel beautiful, the kind that hugs your waist without begging for attention. David told me I looked elegant. That was the word. Elegant. I smiled and thanked him. But inside, I felt like someone had slammed a window shut. There was a time he would have said I looked gorgeous or sexy or even just, God, I can't stop staring at you. But that night, I was elegant. It felt like the kind of compliment you give your mother. Polite. Measured. Distant. After dinner, we danced. The song was slow, and his hands rested on the small of my back, just like they used to. But they didn't press into me. He didn't pull me closer. And when I rested my cheek against his chest, I could hear his heart beating steady, not racing, not aching for me. Just there. Beating like it always does. Like I was no longer something that moved him. I remember that night not because something dramatic happened, but because it didn't. That was the moment I realized we were quietly slipping away from each other. And no one was saying a word. I don't want to make David the villain. He's a good man. A good father. He works hard, he remembers to buy flowers on anniversaries, and he kisses me goodbye every morning. But love isn't just made of moments like that. It's made of energy. Hunger. Curiosity. A desire to really see each other. Somewhere along the way, he stopped looking at me like he saw me. And somewhere along the way, I started looking at someone else. That part, that's what I've never said out loud. Not even to myself, not really. Because when I tell you that my stepson couldn't stop himself, I don't just mean him. I mean me, too. And God help me, I saw it happen again and again. David's love language has always been touch. He's the kind of man who puts a hand on your back when he walks behind you, brushes his fingers over your waist when you pass him in the kitchen, kisses the top of your head when you're doing dishes. It's sweet, I guess, or it used to be. Before it started to feel like a substitute for actually seeing me. I think he believes if he touches me enough, I'll feel close to him again. Like if he wraps his arms around me at night, he doesn't have to ask why I haven't looked him in the eye all day. But I need words. I need curiosity. I need him to ask how I'm doing, and really want the answer. David's a high school principal. He's used to managing chaos, solving problems before anyone even knows there is one. He's good at staying calm, at being respected. But that means, sometimes, he talks to me like I'm another teacher who missed a meeting. Like I'm someone he needs to keep running smoothly. And I guess I've let him. I've let the silence between us grow thick, because every time I try to say something real, I feel like I'm being dramatic. Or worse, ungrateful. Last week, I made dinner. It was nothing fancy, just roasted chicken, a salad, and garlic bread I didn't burn for once. He came home later than usual, something about a student fight and an angry parent, and I waited, even though I was starving. I wanted us to eat together. I set the table like I used to when we were first married. Candles. Wine. Real napkins, not paper towels. When he walked in, I saw the weariness in his shoulders. He kissed my cheek, mumbled, "Smells amazing," and started scrolling through his messages before even taking off his coat. I stood there, holding the salad tongs, watching him. "Can we talk after dinner?" I asked. He glanced up, distracted. "About what?" "Just talk." He nodded, but he didn't ask why. Didn't ask if something was wrong. I felt this tiny ache rise up in my throat, disappointment, I think. Or maybe just confirmation. Over dinner, he told me about school. About the fight, about a new teacher who cried during her first week, about budget cuts. I listened. I always listen. I laughed in the right places and nodded at the rest. I waited for him to ask me how my day was, how I was. He never did. That night in bed, he slid his hand under my shirt like it was a natural continuation of the evening. I let him. I always do, because I don't want to reject him, or worse, make him feel unwanted. But when he kissed my neck and whispered, "God, I missed this," I wanted to scream. This? What did he miss? The way I go silent in the dark? The way I stare at the ceiling, willing my body to respond even though my mind feels miles away? I turned toward him and said, "I don't think I can keep pretending." He blinked at me, confused. Pretending what? That this is enough. That just touching me makes it okay. He sat up, the covers falling off his chest. "Elise, what are you talking about? I touch you because I love you. But do you even see me anymore? Do you know what I'm feeling? What I want?" His eyes narrowed, just slightly. "You want me to stop touching you? That's what this is." "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I want you to care about more than that." He didn't say anything for a long time. Just looked down at his hands like they were guilty of something they didn't understand. And that was the worst part, knowing that he thought he was loving me. That he thought he was trying. But the more he reached for me, the more I felt how alone I really was. I curled away from him that night. He didn't try again. Not physically, not emotionally. In the silence between us, I heard everything he couldn't say. And in that silence, someone else's voice started to matter more than his. The next morning, David made coffee and brought me a mug the way he always does, a splash of oat milk, no sugar, just the way I like it. He kissed the top of my head while I was unloading the dishwasher. I flinched. Just slightly. Not enough for him to notice. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. That's the kind of man David is, one who avoids things that make him feel powerless. He lingered behind me, hands finding my hips like they used to. I froze. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, not turning around. "Just didn't sleep well." He stepped back, letting out a quiet sigh. "I thought, maybe we could go to that breakfast place this weekend. The one you like. We haven't done anything just the two of us in a while." "That's because we never have time," I said, a little sharper than I meant. You're always at work or catching up on emails. David bristled. I'm trying to make time now. I know. I shut the dishwasher a little too hard. Forget it. He didn't say anything else. Just walked out of the kitchen, coffee in hand. Later that night, after we put away the dinner dishes and half-watched a show we'd both forgotten 5 minutes after it ended, he reached for me again. We were on the couch, and I felt him shift beside me, his thigh pressing into mine, arm snaking behind me like it used to. He kissed my temple. I sat stiffly. My body responded with guilt before it responded with warmth. You smell good, he said, voice low. I wanted to feel flattered. I wanted to feel wanted. Instead, I felt like a bottle being opened. I looked at him, his smile uncertain, his eyes hopeful. He leaned in to kiss me. I let him. His lips were soft. Familiar. But instead of sinking into it, I counted the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. My jaw clenched. I felt his hand slide down my side, fingers grazing my hip like a signal. A request. My stomach tightened. I'm tired, I said, gently pulling back. He blinked, surprised. You were fine 2 seconds ago. I said I'm tired. He sat back like I'd slapped him. It's not just tired, Elise. You barely touch me anymore. You never kiss me first. You turn away in bed like I'm not even there. I crossed my arms, bracing. I don't want to talk about this right now. Well, when? Because I'm starting to feel like I'm married to a roommate. That hit something raw in me, because he wasn't wrong. But instead of admitting that, I deflected. Maybe if you stopped trying to fix everything with sex, we wouldn't feel like strangers. His face twisted. That's not fair. It's not? Because every time you touch me, it's like there's a countdown to where this is going. I touch you because I miss you. I miss me, David. My voice cracked. I miss the version of me that used to feel something when you looked at me like that. He was quiet. Hurt. Maybe confused. And I hated that I'd made him feel that way, but I hated more that I couldn't stop myself. He reached for my hand, resting it on his chest. I just want us back, he said. I nodded, looking down, avoiding his eyes. I know. I didn't say what I was thinking. Then stop trying to win me with your hands. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing beside me, steady and close, and still so far away. And all I could think was, why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened on a Tuesday, of all days. The most ordinary, forgettable kind of evening, chicken marsala, steamed green beans, a bottle of mid-range red David had picked up just because. He was trying. I could see that. He'd lit a candle in the middle of the table like we used to before the kids moved out and the silence got harder to ignore. He even played that old Van Morrison playlist we danced to on our anniversary 3 years ago. The whole thing made my skin crawl. Not because it was wrong, but because it was too right. Like watching a movie of my own marriage being reenacted by strangers. We sat across from each other, the candlelight flickering between us like a failed signal. David poured wine into my glass and smiled. You've been quiet today. I'm fine, I said, cutting into the chicken. He tried again. I was thinking maybe we could drive up to the lake this weekend. Just the 2 of us. No work, no phones. I nodded but didn't respond. He sighed gently, trying to keep it light. You know, when you go this quiet on me, I start to feel like I'm being punished. That did it. I dropped my fork a little too hard, the clatter sharp against the soft music. Punished? I repeated, voice cracking. You think this is punishment? David blinked, sitting back. I didn't mean, because I am trying, David. Every day, I try to pretend I'm still the version of myself you want. The one who melts when you touch her, who giggles when you say those same 3 compliments in a rotation, who doesn't feel like she's slowly dying under the weight of being invisible in her own marriage. Elise, no. Let me say this, because if I don't now, I don't think I ever will. I stood up, pacing now. My hands were shaking. You touch me all the time, David. You kiss me. You grab my ass in the hallway like it's some kind of ritual. But when was the last time you asked me how I really am? Not, how was your day? Not, did you pick up more dish soap? I mean, really asked. His jaw was tight. I didn't know you felt this way. Because you didn't want to know, I snapped. Because it's easier for you to assume sex can fix it. That your hands can make up for what your eyes stopped seeing a long time ago. Silence. Thick and pulsing. And then, David said, "Is this about Liam?" The air thudded out of the room. My breath caught. I couldn't speak. Because I've seen the way you look at him, he said, voice lower now, almost trembling. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then, it kept happening. Again and again. There it was. The title of the thing I'd been too afraid to name. Spoken out loud. Liam. His son. My stepson. It had never gone too far, just stolen moments, lingering looks, the kind of attention I hadn't felt in years. But I had let it happen. Over and over. I had needed to feel wanted. And David had seen it. I don't, my voice cracked. It's not like that. Then what is it like? He asked, quiet, furious. Tell me what I haven't already figured out. But I couldn't. I stood there, breath shaking, shame crashing down on me like a tidal wave. He didn't yell. He didn't throw anything. He just pushed his chair back slowly, stood, and walked past me without a word. I stood alone in the dining room, the food cold, the candle still flickering. And suddenly, I couldn't stop crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and buried, grief, guilt, hunger, loss. I wanted to take it all back. I wanted to scream that I loved him, that I tried to love him the way he needed. But the truth was, I didn't know if that version of love even lived in me anymore. I sat down on the floor, curled into myself like something wounded. Why does everything have to turn into sex? And why, when it finally doesn't, do I still feel like I betrayed him? The days blurred after that night. David didn't leave. He didn't sleep on the couch or disappear into a hotel room. But his presence shifted, from warm and familiar to distant and muted. He moved through the house like a man displaced, occupying space without touching anything. He stopped making coffee for me. That, more than anything, broke me. At first, I tried to tell myself we needed space. That we were giving each other room to breathe, to sort through the wreckage without making it worse. But what began as space became silence, and silence became a kind of quiet grief neither of us could name. He'd leave early for work, sometimes before I was even out of bed. He still kissed my cheek on those mornings, a ghost of the man who used to hold me while the coffee brewed, but his lips barely touched my skin, like he was scared of being accused of wanting something again. And I missed him. God, I missed him. I missed the way he used to laugh at my terrible puns. I missed the steady way his hands knew exactly how to rub the knots out of my shoulders. I missed the quiet comfort of his presence beside me in bed, his fingers finding mine in the dark without needing a reason. But I didn't know how to reach for him anymore. Every moment felt like a landmine. If I apologized, would it sound hollow? If I opened up, would he shut down? If I touched him, would he flinch the way I had? Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, while I folded laundry, while I wiped down the counters, while I stood staring out the window for no good reason at all. There was no anger in his eyes. Just sadness. The kind that builds over time, quietly, like a crack in the foundation. He didn't accuse me again. He didn't bring up Liam. He didn't say the word affair, because nothing had ever happened that could be named that cleanly. But we both knew something had happened. Something intimate. Something that shouldn't have. And yet, David didn't rage. He just began to fade. That hurt more than anything. One night, a few weeks later, I found his phone left on the kitchen counter. It buzzed. A group text from one of his assistant principals about a staff meeting. Nothing suspicious. But the sight of his lock screen, a picture of us at the lake 5 years ago, my arms around his neck, laughing into his shoulder, hit me like a punch to the chest. We used to feel like that. Effortless. Undeniable. Home. What had I done? I went to bed early that night, unable to hold the weight of my guilt any longer. He came in late. Changed in the dark. Slipped into bed beside me without a word. I listened to him breathe. I wanted to roll toward him. I wanted to apologize. To whisper, "I'm still here if you are." But I didn't. I couldn't. Because I wasn't sure anymore what I was reaching for, the man beside me, or the memory of who we used to be. And I wasn't sure which one I missed more. That night, I lay awake for hours, watching the shadow of his back rise and fall with each breath. In the stillness, one truth settled in my chest like a stone: if I didn't try now, really try, I would lose him. But maybe I already had. So I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would ask him if he still wanted us. And I would be brave enough to hear his answer. The next morning, I made the coffee. I stood in the kitchen, waiting for the machine to finish, my fingers trembling slightly as I poured 2 mugs. I added oat milk to his the way he liked. No sugar. He walked in just as I was setting them on the table. We locked eyes. "Hey," I said, softly. My voice felt small in the space between us. "Hey," he echoed, guarded but not unkind. I slid the mug toward him. He nodded, sat. We both sipped. For a minute, that was all. Just the quiet sound of a home that no longer knew how to hold a conversation. Then, finally, I spoke. "I miss you." David blinked. His eyes didn't soften. They just studied me, tired, cautious. "I miss us," I said. Before all the pretending. Before the silence. He exhaled slowly, setting his mug down. "It didn't happen overnight, Elise." "I know," I whispered. "I didn't stop loving you," he said. "But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like you loved me back." I swallowed hard. I wanted to. I still do. But I lost pieces of myself, David. I got so used to being touched instead of seen that I stopped knowing how to let you in. His jaw clenched. "Then why didn't you say something?" "Because I didn't know how to say this without breaking us." "You already did," he said quietly. That stung more than I expected. He looked down at his hands. I think I kept reaching for you with my body because it was the only place I still felt close to you. I didn't know it felt like pressure to you. I thought I was showing you I still wanted you. I wiped at my eyes, silent tears slipping down. "I needed more than want," I said. "I needed to feel like you still knew me." And when he looked at me like I mattered, "Don't," David said, shaking his head. "Please. I've already run every version of that in my mind." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "It was never physical. But it was still wrong." He nodded once. Slow. Measured. We sat in silence again. This time, not angry, just empty. Then, without speaking, he reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. His palm was warm. familiar. Heavy with all the weight of what we'd been. I squeezed it. A silent apology. A thank you. A goodbye, maybe. That night, he slept on the couch. Not out of anger, but out of truth. We both needed time. Maybe space. Maybe the beginning of the end. But before he turned off the light, he kissed my forehead. Just once. Soft. Reverent. Like he was saying goodbye to someone he'd once known by heart. And I let him. Because maybe love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it just gets too quiet to hear. You want to know what I learned? I learned that desire without understanding is just noise. I used to think intimacy meant closeness, physical touch, sex, the shorthand of marriage. The little routines. The way you know exactly how your partner takes their coffee or how they sigh when they're about to lie about being fine. But real intimacy? It's quieter. It's scarier. It's not just undressing in front of someone, it's letting them see the parts of you you're ashamed of. It's saying, I feel invisible, without worrying that they'll take it as an insult. It's crying at the dinner table and not apologizing for ruining the meal. For a long time I felt touched, but not held. Kissed, but not seen. And that hollowed me out in ways I didn't notice until I was already drifting. I thought I was broken. Cold. I told myself I'd become frigid, distant. The truth was, I was starving, emotionally, spiritually. I didn't need more sex. I needed to feel known again. Desired not just for my body, but for my thoughts. My feelings. My fears. I let something start with someone I shouldn't have. Liam didn't make a move. He didn't cross a line. Neither did I, technically. But we both knew something was happening. And I let it happen, because I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel alive. That hunger doesn't make what I did okay. But it does make it understandable. And David, he's not the villain in this story. He's not the clueless husband or the emotionally unavailable man. He loved me the best way he knew how. With steadiness. With touch. With effort that looked, on the surface, like everything a woman should want. But I needed more than effort. I needed emotional presence. And maybe I never asked for it directly, but maybe that's because I didn't think I was allowed to. I thought needing more made me ungrateful. It doesn't. We've been quieter since it all came out. He's still here, technically. We pass each other gently. We talk about groceries and the weather. He kisses my cheek sometimes. He even made coffee for me this morning. But we're not us anymore. And maybe we won't be again. And you know what? That's okay. Because I'm finally learning to stop performing closeness and start demanding real connection. I'm learning that staying isn't always strength, and leaving isn't always failure. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is admit the version of love you had isn't enough anymore, and let yourself want something fuller. I still love David. I probably always will, in that complicated, unfinished way people love the ones they built a life with. But I'm not trying to patch holes anymore. I'm not trying to turn silence into safety. Now, I sit with the ache. I listen to it. I let it tell me the truth. And here's what it says: you can crave touch and still feel alone. You can stay faithful and still betray yourself. You can love someone deeply and still feel lost inside that love. And none of that makes you cruel or broken. It just makes you human. So if you're listening to this, if you're in your own quiet house wondering when exactly the warmth slipped away, know this: you're not crazy for wanting more. You're not selfish for needing to feel seen. And you're not alone. Love should be more than a habit. It should be a place where you both get to be fully human, messy, evolving, and known. I don't know what happens next for me. but I know I won't go back to pretending. And that, for now, is enough.